Hey everyone, welcome back to A Better Future Starts Here, a live weekly show brought to you by the American Society for the Positive Care of Children. I'm your host, Tracy Kawa. American Society for the Positive Care of Children, otherwise known as American SPCC, is dedicated to improving the lives of children in the United States. We are America's voice for children, bringing individuals and organizations to ensure that children are raised in a safe environment so that they can grow up and thrive, becoming healthy, secure leaders of tomorrow. Our goal is to bring you the perspective, knowledge, and support from the industry leaders and the professionals who are dedicated to empowering children and families. Today, we're happy to bring Rebecca Woolley. And Rebecca I'm going to read you her bio. She is a free-spirited California girl raised in the Midwest and bred to value family above all else. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology with a focus on child development. And she is a mother who's deeply passionate about how kids are educated. In 2012, she became propelled with a purpose to bring light and faith-filled values back into the education system, volunteering to create school gardens that became touchstones for compassion, love, and nourishment. Sadly, the pandemic forced abandonment of this avenue, and Rebecca continued her mission through homeschooling, becoming an advocate for its benefits of serving the natural needs of children and families. Rebecca launched a nonprofit supporting God-centered homeschooling families called Redeeming Roots, where she is CEO and co-founder. For the 2021 fall school year, she's serving as a teacher in hybrid homeschooling. So it's both homeschooling as well as brick and mortar. So she'll be going into the brick and mortar school 2 days a week and homeschooling 3 days a week. And she believes that this hybrid model is the best for the future of education and for the success of our children. So that's so fascinating, that whole hybrid concept. So thank you, Rebecca. And we appreciate you on the show today, talking to us about rethinking education. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks for having
Doing
me.
well. Doing well. Loved your bio. And I love the journey that you first started in the garden. And then with the pandemic, you still found other ways to contribute to children and families. And, we thank you for that. So tell us about your children. Tell us about your passion for children and families.
Yeah, so I've had a passion for children and families ever since I started babysitting at 13 years old. And when I had my own children, I just really became aware of the importance of what are they going to be exposed to all day long when I leave them in the care of the public school system. And so that's where it kind of started when I had my own kids, is where it became crucial that I took an interest in it. So.
Yeah. Is that how you got into advocating for homeschooling?
Advocating for homeschooling really was a function and kind of a necessity out of what happened with the pandemic when everything was shut down. When my school decided to when they shut down, they decided to go to Zoom classes. I thought there's no way that my kids can learn effectively over that medium. So yeah. I pulled my kids out and I started homeschooling, and that was a totally new thing for me. I had never had any experience in that other than homeschooling my son when he was in kindergarten. And so now my kids they were during the pandemic going into 4th grade and 7th grade. And so I just jumped right in, picked a Christian curriculum, opened the books, and started going. And what I realized when I started homeschooling and started teaching the curriculum was I started to realize what was missing in our public school system, that it was really disheartening. I feel like what was missing and what predicated the shutdown, the closure of our schools, and the complete collapse of our schools was that God has been ushered out of our schools for a very long time. I would say the last probably 50 or 60 years, we have year after year completely just disavowed and kind of like ushered God out of our school system.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to pray. We're not allowed to talk to God. We're not allowed to do
Yeah.
any of that in the public system. So that's what was really eye opening for me when I started to read from this Christian curriculum. Um, it was like everything was connected to God. Everything was connected to that life source of creation. And so that was really eye opening for me. And I thought, wow, this is what's really missing from the public school system is any reference to where we came from, what we were created from. So that's how I became passionate about advocating for homeschooling. I feel like the role of the family and the values that the parents have are instrumental in the education of their child. So
Sure. When when God is ushered out, what do you think replaces that space in the school environment?
yeah, so that's the thing is I noticed this when my son was I put him in kindergarten and I noticed there was the darkness in the school system from the get go.
Mm,
It was kindergarten. I mean, the kids should be,
sure.
be bright. It should be, there should be life and energy. And I just noticed there was a darkness. I thought he was going to be a zombie by the time he was 6 years old. So I pulled him out immediately.
Yeah.
We were kind of like led into the Montessori system after that. But what I think, so there's education, there's the material that's presented. And, it reminds me of like an electrical system. Um, with God and spirit and that whole faith piece being the
Yeah.
electricity. And so you have the curriculum and then you have the it's like a plug going into the socket. You try and plug plug the plug in, but if there's no electrical current going through,
Mm,
then where's the connection point? Where does it come alive? And so for me, I feel like that's what's missing in the public school system, and we've completely pushed that out. God has
yeah.
removed his blessing, I feel like, from the public school system because of that. um, it's just void of electricity. That's what I feel like is so it's kind of like dead. It feels very, I feel like the corridors, it was, you see the pictures of the classrooms just empty during the pandemic and the corridors darkened. It just was like, yeah, there's no electricity there,
Yeah. The conduit,
connection.
right?
There's no
The
conduit.
conduit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no connection point. What's bringing that information and that inspiration? Like if I'm learning information and I want to think about, where's that, like that launch off point? You know there's no juice. So
So what do we replace that with? What happens next? Tell us about individuation, and your theories and thoughts on that.
um so individuation, I feel like what do you mean, like individuation, like with the
Like,
student?
learning how to think and the use of logic, like where does that come into play?
Yeah, I feel like that's been out, that's gone out the window with the public education system. That's a side note, but I it's really
Did you say that
imperative
it
that
went
our
out the
kids.
window?
The
Did you
what?
say that it went out the window? Is that what you
Yeah.
just said? It's like
Yeah, I feel
out
like,
the window,
yeah, yeah, I
right on
feel
out
like
the
it's gone.
window.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
that's what's missing, I feel like, from you say individuation of the education for our kids. And that is where it's at. Individuating the education. So how does that come about? That comes about by actually taking note of where the student is at, and whether that's emotionally, physically, psychologically, or mentally, like where are they at, and then providing as a mentor teacher, providing materials that are going to meet the student where they're at, and then allow them to then interact with it. And that's where the electrical piece comes in, and like the faith piece of like, why are we here, what are we doing, what's the point of all this, why am I even receiving or even thinking about this education. That's where that piece comes in. And I feel like so the individuation piece is meeting the kid where they're at, and then supplying the materials and allowing the kid to interact with the materials in a way that they want to dive deeper. And that is the love of learning. And that's what I feel like is missing from the school system the way it is right now. But that's the way, that is how all administrations are, our government, the school district, they're all trying to figure out this question: how do we get the kids engaged? How do we get them to want to love to learn? Well, we don't do it, I'll tell you, by bureaucratic, kind of a hierarchy, shuffling down and then rolling out a conveyor belt education for the kids, that you have to meet X, Y, Z, and C to pass this certain test or memorize certain things. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't memorize certain things like multiplication and the scientific table. Yeah. But there's a space for all of it. And I just feel like the way that we're meeting the students right now, it's not, like you said, to that question, we're not individuating. And how can you do that if you have a class of students that's 20 or 30 kids? How can you do that? And that's where I feel like the hybrid homeschooling model comes in brilliantly, because you have a mentor teacher standing in front of the children 2 days or 3 days a week, and then they go home, and the children are then interacting with the material with a parent that loves and adores and cares for them, and then can also bring in that faith piece, whatever your faith is, but bring in that God, that creator piece that you have to offer, and then stuff starts to come alive for the child. That's where I feel like the beauty of the hybrid homeschooling piece comes in. So
you said a couple of things that I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into. So one is this concept of mentor teacher. I mean, we've heard of teachers, and then we've heard of adults having mentors, but this whole concept that you just, put out there about mentor teacher is such a wonderful concept. Tell us about that. What is the difference between a mentor teacher and a teacher?
Yeah. So we've killed the mentor teacher in the public school system. We've killed her. We've killed him. The bureaucracy has handcuffed our teachers to the point where they're not allowed to be a mentor teacher. So what I mean by mentor teacher, there's a great book that illustrates this. It's called The Thomas Jefferson Education. So shout out for that book here, Thomas Jefferson Education. Read this book. It's amazing. It will blow your mind on what the mentor teacher. So that's just a little thing.
What is the mentor teacher? What is the mentor?
Yeah, mentor teacher is basically, okay, so what I feel like the best education and what's been kind of researched and touted is like the greatest leaders, the greatest minds of all time, they were taught by mentor teachers, and that was individual people studying the great works of all time, wherever that the great minds, right, of all the different subjects, and the great works and the great writings of all different times, becoming completely absorbed and entrenched and inspired and taught and educated by that, and then passing it down to the child, and offering it as, have you thought about this? When you read this, what does that make you think? And so that's the difference between the mentor teacher and the teachers that we're handcuffing our teachers now. It's like the mentor teacher is offering inspiration to the child, and on the it's on the mount of, here's the great works, here's the great teachings, um, and sorry, and what can we learn from that? Well, how can we learn from the way that it was written? You know, how they said that, how Shakespeare used language to evoke emotion and great storytelling. How does that and I forgot your question. I got distracted. So
Well, it was really about the mentor teacher.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's it. It's like, you know, you're invested in learning, and that's what it's come alive for me, because for the longest
Right.
time, I mean, I as a mother, you know, I had the babies, I nursed them, that was great, you know, but your brain kind of shuts off, or, you know, and then it's like homeschooling brought out this, wait a minute, to actually teach this, I have to learn and dive in and then offer it to my child, rather than just I don't know, the rote way that the children learn now, the amount of information that I was able to offer to my kids in one worksheet compared to like 20 worksheets that the
Wow.
school system, you know, it's like, let's do the worksheet. It's like a busy end of the time. And it's you know, in that situation where, I don't know, it's doesn't seem very efficient, but anyway, the mentor teacher, I feel like that's the way to go, because the person that's offered, the teacher is then inspired, and that inspires. When you're inspired,
Yeah.
it inspires. So
Yeah. Yeah. You can tell when somebody who is passionate about a subject is teaching you versus someone who is dispassionate, who has no, who's more lethargic about a subject.
yeah, totally.
Passion inspires passion, which
Yeah,
takes us back to another something that you were talking about a little bit earlier that had to do, it sounded to me like when you were speaking about God being in the school system, and then that igniting a spark in the child and learning and growing and developing, to me it sounded like you were talking about purposefulness. Like, why are we here learning to begin with? Like what is the substance behind all the learning? What is the
yeah,
purpose? What is the intention for the learning? What is our purpose here? Right? To
yeah,
have children even thinking about that from whatever early age possible,
yeah,
as opposed to waiting till midlife to have that
yeah.
crisis, you
Yeah,
know?
totally. Because I feel so. I have this conversation with my husband all the time. It's like, okay, so you're going to study a subject, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be, you know, the arts. It's going to be reading, literature, math, science. You're going to take it to a certain point. You're going to study it you're going to go. And then all of a sudden, you're going to drop off into this place where there's this unknown, right? Well, in the school system, I feel like the way it is now, or the way that we're educating our children, because we're kind of telling them what to think, not how to think, is that we don't allow them to go to that drop off place, because that drop off place is going to lead you to the infinite. It's going to lead you to the unknown. It's going to lead to your faith of where am I going to rest and hang my hat on? Because in those times of very emotional unrest or uneasiness, you know, my thoughts, if I'm not allowed to, so it's like a stunting of that thought process. And I feel like for great thinkers and great minds of all times, it's
Yes.
like you naturally go to that place. You're going to study and you're going to learn. You're going to go and you're going to keep doing that problem, that formula, that thought, that theory, until it takes you to that edge and drops you off. And it's like, what's that? Well, that's infinitum. That's like complete, the unknown, God, mystery, infinite. You know, now we're
The
thinking.
point of
Now we're actually
creation,
thinking. Yeah,
right? The point of where we pick up and create, the point
yeah,
that we
yeah.
build off of what was built in the past.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes, Tracy, that's exactly it. And that is going to be that is the foundational truth on what we want to give to our children. And I feel like If we can
Yeah.
do that, then our kids are going to be fine. This whole problem that this pandemic has kind of illuminated for us is like,
Mhm.
there's going to be problems that our kids need to solve that, you know, we don't know how to deal with. Obviously, we created a complete mess and we're still in it. So they're going to have to
So
solve some problems that
as
have never
parents,
been
how
seen
can we,
before.
yeah, as parents, how can we best support? What if the school our child is re-entering doesn't have the opportunity for a hybrid program,
Mm-hmm.
which I would imagine not many schools do,
Right.
part-time in brick and mortar, part-time at home. What do you suggest? What do you recommend as a solution to that hybrid approach until it becomes more popularized?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to just taking an investment in your kids' education, and that's what I've learned through this whole thing is kind of like there's great thinkers, great minds, great documents, Declaration of Independence, a Constitution, things that you know we were exposed to, but honestly, I don't have any recollection of that in my own education. And I think it's because I received a conveyor belt education mostly.
Mm.
Um, so I would say an investment. That's been the light bulb moment that has turned on for me. Reading great works to your kids. Um, Sitting down and just reading with them, asking them what their thoughts are without looking for an answer, like not there. I just feel like there needs to be a presence with our kids and an investment in a way that is new and fresh that we haven't had before. Because and I was caught in it too before the pandemic. It's like it's great, you drop your kids off at school and you just trust that the curriculum and everything that they're doing is
Sure.
sufficient. It's like, but my kids are smart, and they so they can get by. They can get by with all A's, and still, So as a parent, wow, I walk around, I'm feeling great, but they're just so they must have a really love. They must be great students. They must have a love of learning. But what I found is no, the system had already drained them. They'd already drained them. My kids were when I got them in my classroom in the house. It's like they were already. I mean, like dry sponges. It's like you got to put some, like pour some water. Like
Water on
we
them.
got to like massage this sponge and get it like let's get going
Right.
with our thoughts and our thinking and actual like this is fun. And my kids make fun of me, but it's just like I mean, I am determined that they are going to have a sense of like picking up a book and what is this going to, inspire me? What is it, like you said, inspire me to new thought and new creation? What is that going to do for me? Because my kids in the classroom, they want it, Mom, what do I need to do to get done? You
Yeah.
know, and they're smart and they can ace it all and they can figure it all out. But it's not about that and taking it to the next level. So I would say for parents, um, investment in your own education, really. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? The mentor teacher is investment in your own education as a person. And I feel like that's kind of what's been missing, what led us to this whole
Mm.
like oppressive system that we're in now, because we have a whole society of people that are basically not thinking for themselves and they're just waiting. What should I think? Not how should I think? Do I even know how to think? Tell me what I should think about
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z and how I should behave with that information. Well, I'm not of that mindset. I live in a free country as we still, it's still free right now. So it's like, I'm going to think, you know, I know how to think. I'm going to keep learning how to think, in the right
Yeah.
way. So
Yeah. It's basically pouring into ourselves so that then we in turn can pour into our kids.
yeah, no, I think I think that's the key. And like we were saying, the presence, just being present with our kids.
Yeah.
Sitting down to dinner with them. A lot of families
Sure.
they don't do that. And it's like, all the kids in the neighborhood. It's so funny because they're like, oh, you must be like an amazing chef, because like we're vegetarian or what. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not an amazing chef. All the kids love to come to your house and eat. They always say, Miss Rebecca, and I'm like, you know what it is? It's not an amazing chef. It's that when your kids come to my house, we sit down, the place is set for them, the meal, put it out nice. We pray and we acknowledge each person at the table. There's no
Mm-hmm.
phones, there's nothing going on. I put on the jazz music, we sit, we listen. So it's the experience of being
Right.
seen and having an experience. And that's what I tell all my friends. It's like, it's not the food. They don't come to my house for the food. They come because when we sit down, that's a time where we can all engage and be with each other. And I feel like that is one thing that parents can do and make a point of, because that's easy, rather than the rushing, just sit down at the
Yeah.
table and just, and same thing with, at parties. I love to have a place set for that person. That person, if they weren't there, they would be missed. And I feel like that's a big thing too, because of the suicide rate, everything that's going on with our, every in the school, it's trickling down, and people need to be seen and they need to be acknowledged, and there's little ways that we can do that, but it starts in the family first. And so that is, it's pouring into ourselves. It's that self awareness. It's the self care, as mothers and fathers, and then being able to extend that to the people that we care about the most, our kids. So
Mhm. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Just acknowledging each person at the table.
I think about just like when you feel like that, when you like just when you say that, it just like feels good. It feels good to me. I think it feels good. Yeah, when you experience that, it just so
So tell us a little about Redeeming Roots.
oh yeah.
What is
So
what do you do with Redeeming Roots with the organization? Tell us the services that it provides, or what do you do?
well, it's new. It's really new. So the pandemic, it kind of birthed it out, and I think March, me and my neighbor Melissa, we wanted to help homeschooling families. We wanted to create, the big vision of Redeeming Roots is that, it's like that, it's like the ideal school situation. Have this big property, one room schoolhouse, lots of room to play, animals, horses, the whole gamut. Kids learn how to do everything, and it's a Shangri-La, for them. That's the dream that was put on my heart for it.
Yeah.
So it's just getting started. We raised some money, and so that, I mean, that's the dream. So if there's anybody who wants to donate a few $1 million, we could do that. But so anyway, we're we're just we want to be a resource for homeschooling families. We want to be able to support homeschooling families, whatever avenue that means. If it means building gardens where we teach, because that's my specialty is gardening and
Hmm.
working in the gardens. And I just believe that all the subjects can be taught in the garden. I believe that, we started in the Garden of Eden. It's like bring the kids back to the garden.
Yeah.
We teach everything
Back
in
to
the garden.
nature.
Yeah, back to nature. And so that was really that's the vision of Redeeming Roots is bringing the kids back to their roots, redeeming the root of, their connection to the source, their God, the connection to the earth, the connection, what it just means to be a human being here on the planet. So it's a nonprofit that we created just as a function to be a resource for people. So it's so new. It's just a little baby sprout right now, but yeah, we're
Wonderful. We
slowly.
look forward to watching it grow.
Yeah,
Can't wait to have you back on in,
yeah.
6 months, a year from now to hear.
Right? Yeah, and we have a little Shangri plant growing. I know. Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's wonderful. That's terrific.
Yeah.
So, any last thoughts that you might like to leave our listeners with pertaining to, education, schooling, or even, breaking the cycle of negative behaviors, breaking the cycle of abuse, all, any of the above?
Yeah. One of the things that I feel like is really important that was brought to my attention, um, during during homeschooling was that we've lost that we were talking we talk a lot about books and the classic books and whatnot, but the core book, it's like we used to be able to ask somebody, "What's your core book?" You know, and now a lot of times I ask that question to people, and they, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What's my core book? What's a book that you look to for your foundational truths that you have a general sense of, agreement on?" Um, that used to be the Bible for the United States of America. And, but whatever it may be, it could be the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Quran, the Four Agreements, whatever that book is, I feel like that's what builds a culture. And that's what I feel like is, one of the thoughts that I felt was really important. And it was really, kind of eye opening for me was as a culture, an American culture, we don't have a core book. We don't, if you ask people that question, they don't have an answer because we don't have that anymore. We don't have a book that we can look to and say, okay, we have a dispute, we have a disagreement, we have, different thoughts or feelings about something. Let's look at what our core book says about this and try and gain an understanding of where we should be guiding our thoughts and our actions. And so I feel like that's where our culture is kind of like this. It's like this, you know, it's a mishmash of, it's kind of unruly and,
Yeah.
all over the place. And there's nothing to kind of tether us all back into like gain, and that's kind of where I come back to the garden. It's like you have like a root system, and everyone, the branches and the leaves are all
Yeah.
drawing from this. And that's, in the Bible, that's one of the verses. You need to stay connected into the vine, and otherwise you will not have any fruit. And so that's one thing that I think is very important for, identify your core book as a family, as a person, and then as a family. I think that'll help people, you know, have a sense of stability. And
That's
again,
awesome.
yeah. And I feel like, and when you're thinking about your kids, as far as like going back to school and what are the most important things for me, I just
Yeah.
would like people to remember, you know, first it's character, then it's community and connection, communication, and then it's curriculum. So
Five
character,
C's.
connection, curriculum. If you can keep that in order, then you're going to always address a child based on their character. How are they connecting and showing up as a human being? Your connection and your communicating with that child, and how are they in their community, and then the curriculum. I mean, that's the education piece, and that shouldn't take precedence in the conversations that you have with your kid. Like, oh, what, how are you doing at school? That's the last piece. It's kind of like the symptom of if the character and the connection
Yeah.
are going okay, then the
Yeah.
curriculum follows. And we've touched on different things in this conversation, but I would say those are the most important things that I'd want to just bring to people's attention, that's been brought to my attention during this whole learning about homeschooling and hybrid homeschooling and creating a nonprofit and all of that stuff. I feel like those are the most important things.
I think it is so critical how you're bringing to our attention to address not just the learning material, but to address the child holistically as a person, right? Their wholeness, their well-being, their their mental state, their physical state. How are you doing? Now, how are you doing with the material? Right? That was the
Absolutely.
visual that I just got.
Absolutely. Yeah. If that's anything I can do is to illuminate that child is just a brilliant, receptive being to all that is being, surrounded, the child's being surrounded by all of these things, and just to be cognizant and aware and present with that, it makes a huge difference. And there's so many different ways that we can execute that, for the child, so that they have a very rich and deep and have a breadth of learning. um, because there's no right way, there's no one way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, that's the message too. It's like there's no one way to execute what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance of it, because each parent comes with their own brilliance of being able to execute it in their way.
Rebecca, I love your passion for education and for developing young minds. Where can someone go if they want to reach you?
Oh, if they want to reach me, they can follow me right now on Facebook or Instagram, Redeeming Roots. So
Redeeming Roots on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or IG at Redeeming Roots _Inc.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, and for anybody who is just joining us, we're talking with Rebecca Woolley, and the topic is rethinking education. And there's just one thing that I would like to read, and this is something that, Rebecca, I believe that you reposted on Facebook, on the Redeeming Roots Facebook wall that I saw today. It was reposted from 2016, and it just struck a chord with me, and I'd like to read it.
Yeah.
So this is how you started it. You said, here's the deal. Childhood needs to be protected and cherished. Life provides a lifetime of adulthood, but only a few moments of childhood. You can never go back and be a kid. You can always find ways to improve and live your best adult life. But those moments of being a kid are once in a lifetime. As adults, we need to build a fortress around that period of time for our kids and limit the busyness, the expectations, the shaming and correcting, and be the savior in our kids' lives in a world that believes in stripping this time period for its own external gain.
Thank you, Tracy. That's awesome. Thanks.
How profound was that?
How
profound.
That was a early, probably some early morning download. Yeah.
Totally. That was profound and prophetic.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was written before.
Yeah.
Before COVID, years before COVID.
I know, and that's the thing. And I've had a vision for building this school, the Shangri-La School of Redeeming Roots, for 10 years, and I keep, and the Lord keeps shuffling me into different things. Okay, maybe this isn't the year. So I'm just very expectant and just learning. Okay, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, and just that's how we all should be, just coachable and just kind of just willing, right?
Yes, being open to what comes your way, because God, the universe, is going to bring you, the who and the what to partner with to make this vision happen. Because anybody who would write a post like that really is, not only blessed, but a blessing to the world. So I implore you to keep pushing at what you are doing with Redeeming Roots. And I really appreciate you being here to help us rethink education and to bring this hybrid model to us.
Thank you, Tracy. It's been such a blessing to talk with you today. And I just feel so blessed to be able to share with you. So it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you again. So for anybody who wants to get in touch with Rebecca Woolley, we're going to show that Facebook again at Redeeming Roots, and we're going to show her Instagram. And if you can just hang on a minute while I just read our outro, and then I'll chat with you for a minute. So we hope you enjoyed Rebecca Woolley and our conversation on hybrid education, rethinking education. lots of new exciting concepts now that I think a lot of people are a lot more receptive to post-COVID, right? We're looking for innovative ways to really engage our children. Some of us are seeing how, we're appreciating teachers more and more during this time. And we're also saying, how can we support you? What's the best way that we have to support our teachers and our education system? And Rebecca and Redeeming Roots have got some amazing ways to do this. So if you're looking for more resources like what you just heard today, please visit us at americanspcc.org. If you know anyone in your community who's making a difference with families, children, schools, the community, please contact us at info@americanspcc.org. We are interested in hearing from you and hearing from them and featuring them on one of our upcoming A Better Future Starts Here shows. Also, remember to go visit americanspcc.org and download the Happy Child app. We love the Happy Child app. It's an amazing app that truly explains how a developing child's brain works so that we as parents and caregivers can form connections with our child that will lead to a lifetime of happiness, not just a fleeting moment of happiness. So again, that's visiting us at americanspcc.org and downloading the Happy Child app. Let's make a difference together. Visit us at americanspcc.org to learn how you can help. And remember, a better future starts here.